So we're hot off the heels of the launch of Cycle 28 on Nintendo Switch, but we're not stopping there. We are working on an update for intelligent design, and Dave is here to have a look at what we've been doing.
Hello.
So we've been talking about this for a while. We mentioned it on the Steam page. We have a few things we want to change in the game, and what we're going to do is at the end of this month, probably at the end of this month, we're going to launch an experimental build which will allow you to try out some of this stuff. But my plants are on fire, Dave.
Yeah, starting well right from the get-go, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, the main thing we've been working on is the UI. The original game, probably, like if you look at a lot of the Steam reviews, the main thing people are unhappy with is the UI, I would say. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I think we've written about this but not really talked about it. But when I first designed the game, I kind of wanted it to be a controller-driven game. And that meant I made some design decisions that were really, like looking back now, weren't good decisions for the style of game it is. So one thing that will change with this update is that we're removing controller support.
Okay, yeah. So that's interesting, isn't it? In terms of kind of how you can improve a design UI experience and a player experience isn't always necessarily about adding things. It can be about removing things as well. And that core idea you had way back, well before I was part of Pillbug, to allow this game to be played on a controller, just a bit like genetics, just kind of like branched off in a completely different direction, didn't it?
Yeah,
So,
it was a constant limiting factor, really. So I think we kind of sat down and we thought this is intelligent design is a PC game, and there's no kind of and we should start owning that, and people actually want to play this with a mouse and keyboard, like they just do.
Yeah.
Like there are some people, and if you are one of the people who enjoys playing on the controller, then we're sorry. We need to make this change, I think, and we hope that you'll be able to find a way of enjoying it with on a more kind of lent forward experience rather than a lent backward.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at 99.9% of the games that are like this in any way, shape, or form, they're designed with a keyboard and mouse in mind, and they, if they do allow controllers, it's like as an offshoot. And I just think there's an expectation that no one's going to use that, so it does lead design in a certain way.
Yeah.
So
let's take a look at how it works now. So we'll just talk through the actual controls first. So I'm going to build some plants, right? This fire is going to just completely destroy everything. Actually, I've got 365 plants. I'm going to herbivores. I got no herbivores. Right. So to build herbivores now, I just left click on the random herbivores and then right click on the map where I want those herbivores to appear.
Wait, where you want the warp pole to appear, right?
Yes, yeah, that's right. So for herbivores, that's
pretty much the same.
Pretty much the same thing.
Yeah.
But that's it. So before there was like a cursor in the middle of the screen, and it kind of controlled like a shooter. Really, you were kind of looking. You had the first thing people who play intelligent design regularly will notice is that the cursor is free, right? So I'm not controlling the camera. I'm moving the cursor with my mouse. If I want to move the camera, we're going kind of total war controls, where I hold down the middle mouse button and then I can move the camera.
Yeah, and your kind of crosshairs disappear at that point because you can't do one and the other. Yeah.
Yes. So the crosshair turns red if it's out of range. So you can see it goes to the red cross. But this feels a lot better, I think. Like I can just, if I want to build some plants, I can just one here, one here, one here.
Yeah.
And then it suddenly is playing more like SimCity, where I'm building plants where I want to build plants, and I'm building herbivores where I want to.
Okay, so you're just simply left clicking to select the button on the left hand side, right clicking where you want the wormholes to kind of appear. And people who know the game already will notice that those buttons on the left are permanently there, which they weren't before.
No, they were in there's like a menu, a drop down menu at the top.
A drop down menu. Okay. Because I mean those are the 6 buttons you use most in the game, right?
Yeah, and I think that also, like, a lot of people, the game doesn't onboard new players very well. I guess these games are complicated. I mean, the genetic simulation games tend to be. But when you boil it down, there are 6 things you can do, really. Like, you can build plants, you can build herbivores, carnivores, and these buildings. And again, the buildings work in kind of the same way. I'm selecting the collector here, and then I can see the range, the effect of, so where the collector's going to be collecting stuff from. I can see the range of existing ones. So I'm going to put it here. Again, it was just a right click. And then now that's collecting biomass from these plants. Same with research stations. I can see that there. And then with the radar. So this is, and I think this is quite nice for, like, the radar. This is the range you can do stuff in. So you need to build multiple to extend your range. So I can now build another one here, and that will extend my range now. So I can now place plants around here.
Okay. Yeah. So those slightly greened out circles kind of show your sphere of influence, or a building sphere of influence in the intelligent design landscape.
Yeah.
So that's a really helpful way for players to see what their stuff is doing and where, right? Which is really, really helpful.
Yeah. And now I can, if I want to see those ranges, I just put my mouse cursor over the building. So I can look over and see my research stations. Also, with the research stations, I can now just click on them to upgrade them. It shows me the cost of upgrading this one. So I'm going to upgrade that one. I'm going to upgrade this one. I'm going to upgrade this one, this one, this one.
Yeah.
This
so
one.
What this really lets you do, I think, as a player, is you can take, like, what you've done here, which is quite an extreme God's eye view, and say, right, I want to upgrade all my research stations, and you just do it. And you can go bounce from one to the other to the other. And it just, because you might have forgotten about one research station, like behind a hill or something. So there's a good chance that you can zoom out, click on a research station, and see them all at once.
Yeah, I think it turns the game. So, like, when I first designed it, in my head, the game was going to end up more like Slime Ranchers, where it was like you're controlling a drone. I don't know. You can see the shadow of the drone there. It was more meant to be more kind of like 1-to-1 almost. Like you're thinking about what's happening to this particular plant. But as the game grew, it turned into much more of a like macro level game, I guess. If you're into your RTSs, so it's all about the macro and taking this kind of larger view of everything that's going on. So that's those things. So that the force field, so like the radar as well, I can click on that and create a force field, and I can change the size of that if I want to. Some people have done some amazing things where they've made like if you go on the Steam, you can have a look on the Steam community. You can see people have set up like cages where they experiment with different creatures. So like these, I'll show you, like not even I can go through these force fields, so you kind of get stuck there.
You have to go up and over.
Yeah.
Okay. And I mean, I've noticed, when we were chatting before, and worth bringing up now, Sean, that your cursor and the circle that corresponds to your cursor aren't always aligned. So
no,
what's that about?
They are if I look directly down. So it's because this is. So what's going on is that the I'm going to go full game like let's get full technical here. Like the idea of going from, like, my screen is 2 dimensions, so the UI is 2 dimensions, right? And then but I'm on a 2-dimension. I want to click somewhere on this 2D in this 2D rectangle that is my screen. And I want that to translate to a position on the landscape. But like when I go up this hill, like this is curved. So the circle, the the like circle on the ground is telling you where, like it's showing you where you're going to affect on the landscape
in a 3D world.
In a 3D world, so perspective is changing basically.
Okay.
In a simple way, like
you
can look, if I move away, you can see the perspective of that circle.
Yeah,
it's actually like a torch. It's like a torch facing straight down. So if I look straight down, look, then that's relatively central.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's just an interesting thing that I noticed. I was like, why is that slightly off? And it's not. It's representing a real thing.
Yeah. So we moved some of this stuff as well. So like we've put the biomass was here. We put that in the center. We put these key performance targets in the center. So I know they used to be down here, and I noticed a lot of people when they were playing, doing Let's Plays, they didn't even notice them. Yeah.
So that's just I mean, a lot of this comes down to your quality of life kind of tweaks, doesn't it? And I hope new and existing ID players will appreciate these.
Yeah.
When they get their hands on them.
One of the reasons we want to do the experimental build is so that existing players can like get this early, because I think this does make the game better. Like it makes the game easier to play. So I want, we want people to get their hands on that as soon as possible, really.
Okay. Yeah. And that segues nicely into this idea of like the experimental build and asking people to just give their feedback on the changes that we put up there. We'll talk more about that experimental build closer to its first iteration. Yep. But as you can see, a lot of the changes we're making here are already based on people's feedback. So we are looking for more of that with every change and every iteration we make, really.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So I think that's great. Yeah, that's the main changes here. So if you want to keep, if you want to stay up to date in the ongoings of intelligent design, then join our mailing list. I will put a link below, and if you do join our mailing list, you get a free copy of the Cycle 28 soundtrack, which is an awesome soundtrack.